Welcome to Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. Now, I'm joined today with Charles Smart, who is known as Mark Fi. But when he first told me his story, I have to tell you that the only thing I could think of was that I'm in the presence of a legend. And that's how I took it. And I
Wow.
know you might not think so,
No.
but your story, just my mouth was wide open, my eyes, and even my videographer that was there. We were shooting a different story, and you were there. And sure enough, you said at the end of it, here you are. You're like, hey, I have a story. I've never told it. And my mouth do you remember? And my mouth was like, we were stunned. We didn't say anything. So I'm just really excited to tell you about Charles Smart, known as Mark Fi, and Mark Fi Creations, because he is tied to the Bob Marley One Love movie from the beautiful artwork, number one, behind you. So, Charles, thank you. Or I should call you Mark Fi or Charles.
You can call
Where-
me Mark. That's fine. Mark is like that name. I really is very a very fond name for me. Because it's the name that I grew up with. When my mom calls me Mark. My family members call me Mark. So it's that name. But in the professional setting and probably institutions, everyone knows me as Charles. So let's call me Mark today.
I said, I know this banner is going to catch you off guard. And I was like, but you know
Yeah.
what? No one might see you that way. But when you told me this story, I was blown away by it. And that's hard to do, right? So tell us, what is Mark Fi Creations and why are you tied to the Bob Marley One Love movie?
Well, Marfai Creations was born out of a coincidence, I guess, right? So I started painting by basically discovered I had an interest in it or an ability. And this painting behind me has a little bit to do with that story as well, where this piece is like my third painting ever. And it's one of my favorite paintings still to date. Bob Marley, of course, I'm a huge fan of him and his work. But then I sent it off to the Bob Marley Foundation, their Bob Marley Facebook page. And they posted it years ago and went viral. Like one day, it kind of blew up. Saw my Facebook page just getting all these hits, and the painting, had thousands of likes and shares. And so that was kind of like the birth of that. I continued painting. I painted some paintings of my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather for my mother's birthday. And when I did that, she made a comment to me, and she was like, what you have here is a talent. It's not normal for you to just pick up a paintbrush, look at something, and be able to paint it like that without any formal training. Where I discovered and got the inspiration was a paint and sip, right? So
Yes, say that again, because I don't want people to miss that. That
yeah,
Mark
yes,
discovered that he could paint at a sip and paint.
yes. So it was my friend's birthday, and she I hadn't seen her. I'd known her from when I was a child, and I hadn't seen her in a very long time. Reconnected, and she lived up in Boca. And so it was her birthday, and I wanted to do something with her. And so I was looking for something to do, and I saw that they had this paint and sip. So signed up for it, went there, and I'm a Leo. So the teacher asked what do you want to paint? So I said, I want to paint a lion. So I picked out a lion, and I started painting. And as I'm going through and kind of following her instructions, which were very basic, you light colors for the parts that are light, dark colors for the parts that are dark, and pick the proportions. That was a simple instruction. So I followed it, and everyone in the class kept looking at my stuff. And I was, kind of a little bit uncomfortable at first, but then afterwards, she was like, you have something here. It's not normal for, the way that you've done this. It looks like you've been doing this for some time. So she said I should pursue it and do something. But at the time I was living in Sierra Leone, so really was just kind of visiting back. And I decided to go back to Sierra Leone. And when I came back for the Ebola outbreak is when I was stuck here, and just kind of went to Michael's, got some supplies. So after my story with my mom, making that comment to me and giving her those pieces, I decided to do something with it. Marketing was my background, and I kind of saw how artists were looked at. It wasn't something that I wanted to necessarily do for a living as much as it's something I wanted to do just for expressing myself, right? One, and also seeing how I could use it to create impact. So I created a brand around it called Mark V Creations. And, my spiritual side of things looks at, you know, the cosmos and our existence and our place in the world. And I think about, you know, the creator, right? Whatever you might describe the creator as a part of who we are too, right? We are creators. And so out of us, we create things. And so I wanted to be able to, and so phi, right, is considered the divine quotient, right? It's also a Greek letter. And so for me, phi means creation. It's like the God-given ability within all of us to create something, right? Because the proportions of phi mathematically is within the proportions of our universe, our proportions of our body, proportions of the DNA and plants. It's everywhere, right? It's like a representation of creation. And so Mark is the piece of it that is really tied to wanting to leave a mark behind. So
Okay.
even though it's my name, it's also about, creating something that's going to leave a mark behind, right? Make an impact. So Mark V Creations is about creating things that are going to leave a mark behind. And so I created this brand around it, to kind of take what I was doing and put some substance around it. So that's kind of like how Mark V Creations came about.
And gee, I wonder where Mark V Creations are now. I just wonder. Wonder if Bob Marley even knows that, well, people who love Bob Marley, I bet they go to the Bob Marley Museum. And would they find your work there?
Well, so that relationship with the Bob Marley Museum was because of that painting that I shared with you before that I shared with them and it went viral. Um, I went to do a tour there, and it was I think I went to Jamaica for some other thing, and I hadn't been to the Bob Marley Museum before, so I went to do the tour. And as I'm doing the tour, I, by the way, created at that point a bunch of Bob Marley paintings, large, small ones, and it just kind of hit me. I was like, you know what? This is where I want these paintings to be. Like this feels like the home for them. And the interesting, I had a really cool experience there. There's this guy named Georgie that used to be like a cook for Bob Marley. And he was in the yard that day, right? At the museum. And I had a chance to meet him and sit down with him and talk with him and, do what people do when you go to the Bob Marley Museum and you're around another Rasta man. Well, we had a little moment and we chilled together, and you know, that really solidified that's where I wanted the paintings to be. So I reached out to the Bob Marley Museum and shared with them my concept and what I wanted to be able to use the paintings for and how to use them to create impact. And so I partnered with the Bob Marley Foundation. And so the paintings were installed within the Bob Marley Museum back in 2017, I think it was. So there's a room that they opened up at the Bob Marley Museum, and it was called the Mark V International Room. Um, And so for years, the exhibit was there for people to go and see. And so we sold prints. The originals are a part of the museum's permanent collection, which means that they'll always be a part of the Bob Marley museum's collection. But the prints from the paintings are available for sale. So if people want to purchase prints of those pieces, they can purchase them. But the prints from these pieces and the sale from the proceeds from these prints go towards the Bob Marley Foundation's education initiatives in partnership with UNICEF. And so anyone that purchases those paintings is going to not just be contributing to, the Bob Marley Foundation, but they're going to basically making an impact on the lives of children in communities within Jamaica that need help, which, goes back to the whole model of using my art as a medium to be able to create impact. So that's kind of the story around.
Well, and again, I have been in the room with Charles or Mark before, because I know you as Charles, but I have been in the room. He's an Akaba member. In fact, he's one of the Akaba original founders. I talk about the Akaba World Network quite a bit. And we've been in the same room, said hello to one another. I was covering a story about, one of his best friends or his best friend. And, he drops this story on me. Oh, hey, by the way, I have all my artwork is in the Bob Marley Museum and it's named after me. That's something you might want to mention every now and then. I love, it just blew me away. Everything you kept saying, and yet there's what? There's more. So can you tell us a little bit about how this love for one, Bob Marley, painting, sharing your work, using your work to help others, so much to you. And we're not even close to the end of this story. We're just not. It's just when I said in the beginning that I knew I'm in the presence of a legend, I believe that what you've done and what you will do is going to leave a mark for centuries to come. And I don't say that, I don't think I've ever said that about anyone that I know. But the passion that you have, this is, I have to say, one of my favorites right here. Okay. I just sit there and I can look at this painting and you just feel like you can relate to whatever he was thinking at this moment. I don't know what you put into your artwork and what you're thinking when you're portraying your artwork, but it is, in my opinion, astounding. So I know that you'll continue to do that, but I do want to talk about how Paramount Pictures, producing this movie about Bob Marley, One Love. And when they heard this incredible story, how did they respond? Can you tell people how they responded?
Yeah, so so Bob Marley partnered with Terrapin last year, a couple years ago, to do a One Love experience. It was a world tour that they were doing. They started off in London, then they went to Toronto and LA, and they're looking, at new other locations internationally for the continuation of that tour. And Cedella Marley, I think, mentioned me to them as one of the artists to reach out to for, to be a part of the exhibit. So that happened and I started doing that. So there's a bunch of content that was out there around the Bob Marley One Love experience. So there's a company that was hired by the Paramount hired to be able to execute a activation for the promotion of the Bob Marley One Love movie. And it was TikTok's first global music event. And it was with Cardi B and a bunch of other big names that they were doing in Mesa, Arizona. And this was last year, December. So I get an email asking me if I would be interested in creating a piece for them. So I spoke to them, told them, but I think they found me online just because of the exposure that I had with the Bob Marley One Love experience and the other things that I was doing. So when I spoke to I guess the producer for the event and I told her my story, she was like, "Oh, done deal. We found the person.
Exactly.
There's no one else." So that was kind of how that happened. So the sequence of events where people think that sometimes you need to go to a particular moment and it's that moment, but there are like all these things that happen before that lead to it, and they may seem smaller or insignificant, but they contribute to it. So they asked me to do it, and they wanted to do an interactive painting to promote the piece for the One Love movie at this event. And Paramount Pictures and TikTok were the individuals that commissioned me to do this piece. So
Can you
this
describe how, this picture actually came to being, the picture that we're looking at right now?
great. So it was super fast. So this was one of those scenarios where I was actually traveling. So the we got together and figure out the negotiations of what they wanted, how we were going to do it, and this happened like the week of Thanksgiving,
Mm.
right? And I had to travel on the 30th of December to I was going overseas to West Africa, and that was already set. So I literally had, I don't know, 7 days, 6 days to get this piece completely done. And I took it on, and the process, it was a large piece, a large painting. So it's 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide.
Wow.
So it looks small here because what
Yeah.
you're seeing on here is a speaker system. So they had an activation at the TikTok in the Mix event in Mesa, Arizona, where they had all these speakers. And if you kind of look to the right of the painting, you kind of see the poster that everybody knows of the Bob Marley One Love movie, and people there walking around. So this is a close-up painting, a photo of the painting. So this piece was interactive. They wanted something that the audience was going to be able to engage with. And so I had to do the painting, but not complete it. Then I had to send it off to them so that they would be able to get the audience to be a part of the experience. And in being a part of that experience, they allowed me to be creative and coming up with a concept behind it. So for me, love and unity is a very big part of just how I want to communicate and express myself, and a message I want to kind of transcend in the hearts and minds of people, right? And so the message of Bob Marley's movement was two parts. It's two parts for me. His message about revolution, change of your hearts and minds towards love and unity, and of course, truth. And so the one love aspect of it, the painting here has stickers on it. And you see all those hearts. So all the hearts that you see there were placed on the painting by individuals that attended the event. And the place at the top where you see one love is was also placed on the painting by the attendees to the event that were interacting with the painting. But at the top where you see it says one love, each of those individual stickers, I think there are like 80 something of those stickers at the top. And those individual stickers have the word love in every language spoken in the world.
Wow.
So as people were placing the stickers on the painting, they didn't know what was going to come out. So as they placed the stickers in the appropriate places that were labeled on the piece, is how the word one love got revealed. And so the message of the piece, of course, is one love no matter what language you speak. And the original concept, and I share this, is that instead of just having the hearts with the different colors on there, the original concept was to have the hearts in the different flags,
Mm.
right, of all the countries in the world. Uh,
Mm.
but we decided not to go with that concept. and they used the other piece of just using the language, so that that was it. So this is the message behind the piece about just like love, and we need that message right now. Our
Don't we all?
world right now, with everything that's going on, we need a little bit more compassion and love and understanding and unity, and realizing that we're really not so different. We all really want the same things.
Yes, we do. And there's two things I want to touch on of before, we have to wrap it up. And that is, when you first told me that this was an interactive piece, your background came to my mind. And I'm still new to AI, so I don't know everything about AI, but I
Right.
know that AI is your space. If you've been
Hmm.
watching the ticker scroll across, you
Yeah.
see this Met AI block, and you're the founder of this AI company. And so I was wondering, is there AI involved in this at all, or is this just all technology in a different form?
So AI was an assistant in helping me to craft this, message and the interactive piece. So creating initially I literally went through the whole process of creating all the flags and the hearts, and getting all the countries, and putting that together, and making the collateral for that. And so I used AI to accelerate that,
Oh,
and to
okay.
make that happen a lot faster than it would if I was doing it manually. And I also used it to do a lot of research, to be able to make sure that I was capturing everything and resolving things. So a lot of tools kind of came together to do that. I also use it to generate different concepts of what I was trying to do, to visualize it, right, to see it. But yeah, technology is a huge part of my existence and being. I studied in school, and I've been in tech in a variety of different ways over the last 20 plus years, helping organizations to figure out how to implement different forms of technology. And data and AI is actually very central to the work that I have been doing. And so the new company that I founded a couple of years ago was ahead of its time, because when we founded Metai Block, nobody was really talking about artificial intelligence that deeply at the time. There was like the big metaverse craze.
Okay.
But now we're right at the center, and we offer workshops to help organizations and individuals to figure out how to apply artificial intelligence within their organizations in practical ways, to be able to solve real world everyday challenges that they have.
Now, I do want to also talk to you about how you share your work, because I know that the exclusivity around your work uh, is vital to what you do in your artwork and how
Hmm.
you share it. So you can't just it's not in a lot of galleries, and everyone can't go to Jamaica, but you know, they can fly you somewhere or to do an event, right? And you can do your talk to me about how
Yeah, so
you share
initially
talent.
when I first started painting, by the way, I was anonymous. So I was anonymous until 2020. And I started painting back in 2014, 15 is when I really started. Um, and so going back to Mark V Creations and the creation of that company, I started thinking about, how do I execute this? How do I put this model together so that it works, right? I know I've heard the story of the struggling artist. Um, and I believe that where you put something, it matters. If I sell something on the side of the street, then you're going to get side of the street prices. If you sell something in places where people are expected to pay a certain amount for it, they value it accordingly. And so I've been very deliberate and very intentional about how and where I place my pieces. And so as a part of my impact model, I needed to figure out how to do that. So I moved to China after I started painting, and I partnered with a charitable organization there called Shunwei. And Shunwei is a nonprofit. It's the largest nonprofit government agency in China that provides assistance to orphans, and they have these what they call mamas that take care of these orphan children in China. And so I partnered with them to execute my first, the model of creating a painting specifically for that, and then taking that painting and creating merchandising around it so that we could sell it to make additional revenue. And that model executed it for the first time, and it just took off. Sold my first piece for I think $12,000+, and that was just a validation of what I thought about in terms of where you place your pieces. So I've taken that approach in not necessarily, people put value in things that are not easily to access, right? If you see a line outside of a store, you're like, why is there a line there? Right? You're a little bit more intrigued to go inside, right? And and also placing my pieces in front of individuals that have the wherewithal to be able to afford them, because a lot of my pieces initially were sold for the purpose of charity, right? Was philanthropic based. And so that has continued. And one of the things that I do to continue that and to create some exclusivity around how the pieces are accessible is through private vernissage events where I will, take over the home of someone who may have a really great network of individuals that can appreciate the value of the art, right? And I'll decorate their home with my pieces, and then we'll have a cocktail night, and that will happen and by invitation only. But I have showcased my art in different places, but not necessarily for the purpose of selling them, right? And that has created some kind of curiosity around it, and a demand also for them, because it's not like something you can just go get. But I also do commissions. So if someone is interested in, hiring me to paint a specific piece for them, I'm able to do commissions, and people can log on to my website, and the process is there laid out very clearly for them to see how that works.
So tell me one thing before we go. Did you ever meet Bob Marley, or did you ever see him perform?
No, I was too young. So Bob Marley died in 81.
Okay.
And I think I was 4 years old at the time.
And
So, uh,
where did this
I had,
love for Bob Marley come from? I'm just curious.
yeah, so that was, I think the realization of it happened in about 2001, right? I was living in DC at the time, or Virginia, DC area. And I had this massive collection. There's a friend of mine that I met, and he used to talk about Bob Marley, this guy named John Brown. I forget him. And he would talk about all this Bob Marley. So we'd always exchange Bob Marley, stuff. And I had this massive, I think at the time is when he came out with this 4-disc CD of his collection of all his music. And interestingly, the first piece of art that I ever purchased ever in life was a Bob Marley sketch. And I had it framed, right? And it's still at my mom's house till today. And so it was kind of like one of those, man. Plus, I'm Jamaican as well. And just his message. So over the years, that's been solidified. And so when I started painting, like one of the images that I wanted to paint was him. Right. And so I think it was a part of me without even really realizing it so consciously. But people have been asking me that question recently quite a bit. But my memory of that kind of acknowledgement of me being a real fan of his work goes back to that time when I was in the DMV area.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I just thank you so much, because I know, we've been able, your story has been told a few times, recently because of the movie,
Yeah.
on NBC and other, awesome podcasts that have been sharing it, MIA Media Group. We just appreciate all that. But I just want you to know that when you saw it here on Newsworthy Stories, it's because you were in the presence of a legend. Because, in my opinion, that is what's happening here. So when you tell us to go around telling that story, you need to prepare people that when you're going to tell them, oh, at a sip and paint, I found out I could paint. And oh, wait, Now all of my, paintings are in the Bob Marley Museum. Oh, named after me. And oh, the Paramount Pictures called me. You should prepare people for that. You know.
You know, so this is interesting, and I have that conversation with my friends all the time. Because I did no press releases or I did nothing advertising about the Bob Marley museum stuff when it happened. Nothing. I mean, I said nothing. I told no one. Like because I was not one of the things too. I was anonymous at the time, and it's interesting because I don't necessarily think about it. I don't know if I make a big deal as much about it as everybody else makes a big deal about it, right? For me, it's kind of like I want to do this thing. I'm doing this thing, and that's kind of like the way I look at it, and that's I I'm motivated by accomplishing it, not necessarily by everybody saying, "Okay, that's a great thing that I did," right? And so I'm very pushed by that. So it's for me, it's like this thing has happened. Now on to the next. Like even this thing that I'm doing with this media recently, it's only because I think you're kind of part of the conversation why it happened.
That would be correct.
I pushed that out. Because I don't know if I wanted to put something out there about the Bob Marley painting because I felt proud. I was very proud to be, however minusculely involved in this very big moment, and I hope people go out and see the movie. I think Bob Marley's message is needed right now. So if you haven't seen the movie, go with your friends, bring your, family and friends and go check it out. It's an incredible movie. Tells only like tip of the iceberg of who he really was and all the work that he did, but definitely check it out. But that's kind of how I think about it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not
And
sure
I
if I'm
respect that. I respect that. And the one word that I came up with for you now is, and I think it works well with who you are and what you do, and that's mysterious. And that's good for an artist, an artivist as you are,
mm-hmm.
which is where art and
Activity.
advocacy, yeah,
Yeah.
meet.
Yeah.
And so to me, that mystery and the mysteriousness about you will work in your favor, because you're not seeking uh, to be a legend, but it's this, the wheels are already turning. I just wanted to put it in writing.
I tell you, legend is a big
That's a
shoe.
big word. That's a
Yeah.
big word.
So
But you can't do what
definitely
you're
I
doing.
can't say I can embrace that word as yet.
Not yet.
It,
You don't
it,
have to. It's
it's
fine. I'm not.
overwhelming almost.
But you can't do what you're doing behind you. That work that's behind you. That is impossible without being gifted and equipped in a way that is beyond your mind. And
Mm,
so it's for us to say, not for you to say, but
mm-hmm.
that is not something that I, share lightly. And I was like, because I was with my videographer, Nate,
Mm-hmm.
Nate, and we were both just sitting there, silent, going, "What did he just say? What did he just say to us?" You know, and but that's a beautiful thing. So I'm grateful to be able to share this story. But listen, connect with Mark, share his work, share his story, but you know, use it. Get his artwork, put it up. Because Bob Marley's message is beautiful. It is one love. And this is just the beginning. It's not the only thing that he has portrayed. I believe I saw a Nelson Mandela picture as
Mm-hmm.
well. And, and so
Yeah.
I was just saying that. But I think there's so much more to come. And I just can't wait for you to actually share it with me, because now you're going to share it with me,
Yes, I
as
will.
opposed to
I
keeping it
will.
to yourself. And you don't have to tell everybody everything, and that's fine. But this right here, this work that you're doing, um, I think it's healing. It's very
Mm,
healing. You can look at that work and just see the love, that you portraying Bob Marley, and it's so refreshing. It's just delightful. I don't even know how to express myself. So thank
Thank
you for being you, and thank you for sharing this story.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of those kind words.